Here I am. I found my voice. Thank God. Thank God. Are you ready? Okay.
Oh,
My strength. Mixed with your song. My salvation. As I find my song. Through you I will know my strength. Join us, it's in your insert. Let's keep it going one more time. My song, that strength inside. As they fell into your song with my strength, my song, my song. I find my strength. I find it is blended with you, yeah. Here we go. One more time. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, the sea of Shabbat Shaloms. Bruchim Habaim to the Stonewall Chorale. Your being here is a blessing to us and to the Ner Tamid community. I told them they would be getting a lot of loving Shefa Flow love from you all, so don't make me a liar. So it is a not insignificant Shehechianu moment for me personally and for our family, for Leora and I, because just shy of 20 years ago, Leora and I were mercifully clueless but very lost and very much in need of community. And we answered, actually, we saw an ad in the newspaper, a little ad that said auditions for the Stonewall Chorale. And as I remember it, I said to Leora, we're doing this. And she was like, ugh. And so we called this number, and this woman right here, Cynthia Powell, picked up, and we said, hi, we're opera singers. Can we audition for your choir? Which she later told us her inner voice was like, yikes. And it was like a relationship and a bond that was immediate, but even more, Stonewall Chorale made it possible for Leora and I to know what it felt like to really belong somewhere. It became our chosen family for so many years. Many of the people in the Stonewall now are not people that sang with us then, but there are a few, and they're beloveds of ours. And in a world of so much chaos, Stonewall has always stood firmly in music, speaking truth into the world in beautiful and important ways. They're going to open all of our hearts tonight as we celebrate the watershed moment of our people in our story, in our coming to being, and also they are going to fill all of our hearts with hope. And I'm so glad and so honored that we get to host all of you tonight. And we'll thank them again, but especially to Marge and Paul Grayson, who believe in the power of music, and they do what needs to be done every year, and I thank you both so much. We continue our service on page 20. Please join us.
Page 24.
On page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharetz, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharetz, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Malachi Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem לשלום, boachem לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, המלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. boachem לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, המלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. boachem לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלאכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, המלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני, ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלאכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Let's hear you.
צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, המלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, המלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום,
Shabbat Shalom. So every single Shabbat evening, we usher in Shabbat by lighting candles and blessing wine. And in doing so, we add light into our lives and sweetness into our days. Now, tomorrow, we're going to read from a section in our Torah called Shabbat Shirah, or Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, which is why we call this Shabbat Shabbat Shirah, the Sabbath of Song. And by the way, is the reason that we have such a wonderful music group here tonight. But in doing so, one of the things that we do is we model ourselves off of our ancestors. That at times of joy, we add our own voice in song to that time of joy. Now, it's a joyous occasion because we have the Stonewall Chorale here tonight. But it's also a joyous occasion because tomorrow, Sylvia will be called up as a bat mitzvah to the Torah. And like Moses and Miriam and all our ancestors, she will add her voice as well to the chorus of those who have sung the Song of the Sea, to the chorus of those who through words of Torah make meaning out of ancient text. And so it's my pleasure to call her up to come with her parents and her brothers. Together we turn to pages 2 and 3, and we prepare to light our candles tonight.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Sher Shabbat.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
So we're together on page 5 as we prepare to bless our wine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei Peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh zeher letziat mitzrayim
Kivanu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uratzon hinhaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat.
Amen. Chaim. There weren't 200 people here when she practiced, but it was perfect. We continue our service on page 20. Lecha Dodi. We welcome Shabbat.
Lecha dodi likrat alay, araray, alalay, alalay, b'nei Shabbat.
verse number 5.
Ehi toreri, chi vorrei, come ori, urri, il taveri, e vota turnai, alai, nigla l'chadudi l'echadodi l'kirat, alai, alalai, 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 bene Shabbat, nekabela, dai l'echadodi l'kirat, yavadai, alai, bene Shabbat, nekabela.
We rise facing the door. We remain standing, page 28.
Join us. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Be'olam Ba'ed. You may be seated, but keep singing. Yai dai dai, yai dai la la, yai dai yai dai la, ya la la, yai dai dai, lai lai, ya la la ya.
Bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim.
We're going to turn back into your inserts and start with these words. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. Again, we are loved, but mean it. Love, loved by an unending love, an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. Yes, we are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are
Let's hear you.
loved. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting, 'cause we are loved. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. Yes, yes, we are loved by an unending love, love, love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love, love. We are loved, loved, loved by an unending love, an unending love. ואהבתך לתסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוות
קדושי, ויתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
So in a moment we're about to lift up very familiar words. The essential question of the Shirat Hayam, Mi chamocha, who is like you in holiness, in grandeur, doing wonders. There is an echo of a kind of awe inspired through surprise. How is it that this became, that this has begun for us? And it's like that sometimes. We are inspired and awed, sometimes entirely by surprise. But sometimes, and there are some few souls that imagine belief into being. And we are lucky that we have both in our tradition. Moses and the Israelites and Miriam and the women who remembered to bring instruments to celebrate the miracle they knew somehow would absolutely be. And tonight we lift up them both. The awe that comes through surprise that stuns us, and the awe and miracle that happens because we were brave enough to believe and to bring it into being. We join together. You can follow on your inserts.
And danced the whole night long.
Tell us about her, Peri.
And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one which sang our history. With every thread and every strand she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances towards the light. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam stood upon the shores and gazed across the sea. The wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand, and we would pass to freedom and march to the promised land. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam, the prophet took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her just as she had planned. And Miriam raised her voice with song, she sang with praise and might. We've just lived through a miracle. Ha. We're gonna dance
We won't blame you if you stand.
all night on your feet, and the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced. And the women dancing with her timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long.
And so we turn forward in our prayer books, and you can remain standing, to page 155 as we rise together. And after joining in this first opening meditation, asking God to open our lips that we might praise God, that we might sound our own song, whatever that means, we then continue in silence, praying either the words of our heart or the words of the page through page 167. And so we are together on 155.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Tamid avodat Israel.
As we do each Friday night, we pause at this point in our service to think of those who are ill and who are in need of healing, who are in need of a refuah shlema, complete healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. If you're thinking of someone in need of healing, I'll invite you to hold their name in your heart as I read our congregational list, and then I'll invite you to share the names of people for whom you are thinking as well. This Shabbat, we think of the following individuals: Sylvia Mooney, Mimi Jacobs, Joshua Gendel, Ann Rosenberg, Harab Meir Simcha ben Shena, Rav Chaim Eliezer ben Rav Meir Simcha ben Esther, Eileen Smith, Zachariah Yaakov ben Karen, Gira D'Agostino, Yehudit Devora bat Tova u'Moshe, Jill Turetsky, Laura Bellamy, Bonnie Horowitz, Laura Ann Romale, Linda Painter Levine, Charlotte Ganzer, Andrea Pinelli, Claude Pomper, Sonia Johns, Renee Jacobson, Jared Miller, Edith Shavat, Minnie Seaman, Lila Margolis, Peretz Chanoch, Ben Moshe Ben Mindel, Chanoch Handel, Ben Yitzhak V'Shoshana, Gary Reed, Sharon Rosen, Randy Lowe, Miriam Bat Esther, Joanna Jelski Fusco, Stephen Raitt, Janet Vendetti, Lillian Wexler, Ed Lillian Schmidt, Eliezer Shammai, Ben Elchanan, Halevi V'Gittel, Carol Freer, Esther Gittel Bat Rivka, Jerry Hoffman, Gabrielle Bet Chava, Sarah Finkelthal, Tegan Kaiser, Bel Swirsky, Andrew Lerner, Gabe Patnoy, Beryl Leib Ben Pinchas V'Ruchalea, Miriam Leora Bat Abraham V'Sara, Grant Mellinger, Esther Bat Ruth V'Shlomo, Rosalind Wellner, Irving Berner, Liam Gardner, David Ben Henu, Elijah Richards, Chaim Ben Shmuel Yaakov, El Leinoff, Mary Sinelli, Philip Natter, Wolf Leib Ben Pesach Esther, Carol Spielman, Diane Felder, Stephen Penny, Roberta Sandler Feld, Barbara Lesser, Nachman Zalman Ben Rachel Leah, Phyllis Shankman, Yonatan Yisrael Ben Rivka. And we add to these names: Miriam being the heroine of our Shabbat story as she dances as she crossed the sea, is also in a way the tragic figure of a later story as she comes down with an illness. And her brother prays perhaps the most simple prayer in our Torah. El na rafana la, please God heal her. And you can find the words to that prayer on your supplement. So later tonight, after dinner, our real sermon is going to happen as the Stonewall Chorale shows a piece that I would say stands for itself, and though the Cantor will introduce it later, is words of protest, words of truth, words of thought. And so I'm going to just say a quick word now, because their words stand for itself, and it is our sermon tonight. But I would be remiss if not to introduce our next prayer by linking it a little bit to our Torah portion this week. Because in our Torah portion, we find redemption happens to the Jewish people. We find that the Jewish people, after being enslaved in Egypt, finally crosses that parted sea, comes to the other side and is free. God has delivered them, and every single time we pray, morning and evening, we remember that deliverance. We remember that redemption. We sing the words, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, which we sang so joyously tonight. Who is like you, God, modeling ourselves after the words of Moses and Miriam, who sang when they crossed the sea as well. But that redemption comes a little too early in our service. Because in addition to celebrating a redemption that was, we also pray for a redemption that will be. We pray the words of Elena, saying that basically one day the world as it is might come into being as the world as it should or could be. And in doing so, we dream of a future that we don't see now. Our tradition understands that redemption is twofold. We celebrate the redemptions, the step forwards of our past, while at the same time acknowledging that there is still a way to go. The fact that the Stonewall Chorale exists is a redemption that we can celebrate of the past. And I have to say, the LGBTQ movement has come a long way. A decade ago, we could never have imagined where we were now. A decade before that, we could have never imagined where we might have been here. But the truth is, with the unending hope of our Jewish people, redemption never fully finishes. That every step forward that we have, every gain in rights, every heart turned, every openness, every truth, always has more to go. That as much as we celebrate the redemptions once upon a time, as much as we have Shabbats commemorating the fact that we did march through that sea, we got to the other side, we are no longer under Pharaoh's thumb, we also acknowledge that this broken world could be made better. That there is so much more to go, so long to march, and that sometimes the first step is to begin in prayer. Because when we situate ourselves and we acknowledge that we are not done with the sacred task of making this world and our lives better, only then can we begin to roll up our sleeves and do that work to bring this world from what it is to what it should be. Page 282, we rise for Elena.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287.
והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We turn together to page 294. Our thoughts now turn to those we love who have passed from life. As is the way of our people through our recitation of Kaddish, we honor their lives by praising God for letting us walk at their side and they at ours for our little time. I invite you, if you are so inclined, to individually rise at your seat as I call the name of your loved one. Yard sites for this Shabbat are Jacob Abelson, Rachel Behar, Joseph Berman, Jack Bach, Elaine Borowski, Audrey Brecker, Harry Burstein, Sophie Daniels, Rhoda Dolobowski, Betty Epstein, Beatrice Schwartzer Frank, Alice Friedland, Jacob Friedland, Harry Friedland, Norma Eli Goldberg, Richard Green, Clara Greenberg, George Green, Florence Hammer, Leonard Kane, Elaine Katcher, Alvin Kosak, Florence Kurtzman, Sophie Lorea, Doris Levy, Ruth Lipschutz Molnar, Lottie Luft, Rose Maltonfort, Pearl Mandelbaum, Morris Margolis, Irving Nam, James Murray Rakoff, Charles Rand, Julius Rettig, Ruth Rich, May Sachs, Muriel Schleien, Harris Shannon, Rabbi Jacob Keston Shankman, Ruth Kane Shapiro, Israel Shapiro, Paul Sherman, Michael Schvetz, Teresa Silber, Sarah Silverman, Jean Skelly, Abraham Nathan Sokolow, Esther Sonduk, Anna Stone, Mary Wald, Abraham Weinberg, Yetta Weiss, Saul Weitzelman, Yetta K. Wine, and Emmanuel Zwirling. And for those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Elaine Gorfinkel, mother of Anne Gorfinkel, and Marta Brown, aunt of Naomi Serlin. In addition, please rise and share the name of anyone for whom you're observing a yard site that may not have been on this list. And finally, if there's anyone here in their 1-year period of mourning, I'll invite you to stand and share with us the name of your loved one for whom you are reciting Kaddish. now in support of those standing before us, I'll invite us to rise, and if it's your custom, to join with the mourners in the recitation of Kaddish, page 294.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חידותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמרן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen.
Please be seated. So as we do, just a few quick announcements. I know that we are on a bit of a tight schedule and need to get to dinner, so I will just announce maybe 2 or 3 things coming up, and I apologize if I miss some of the other great stuff that's happening.
Luckily, you can find them at an Ari Garrett.
Yes, you can. So in the short term, on Sunday, we've got a host of great events. After, of course, Shabbat, which is tomorrow morning, you can find a host of things before our Shabbat, including mindfulness and Tot services at 9, and then our Shabbat services at 10 a.m. when we will celebrate as Sylvia becomes bat mitzvah. But Sunday, 2 things happening. The first is a reception for new members, and if you are a new member of our congregation and you don't know about it, please talk to me. I'll make sure that you can find out that information. That's from 2 to 4 at a congregant's house. And then at 5 o'clock, we're really excited to have 2 of the most thoughtful voices in kind of modern American discourse on Israel. One, our member, Jody Rudorin, who is the editor-in-chief of The Forward, and in conversation with Peter Beinart, who's one of the kind of leading voices on the left, American left on Israel. And so that's going to be here at 5 p.m. Please join us. We've got a host of other events coming up, from our Israel fiction reading group, which is going to be on the 23rd, to a really cool program that the Cantor and I are putting on about Musar, which is kind of a Jewish spiritual practice looking into certain virtues, where we're going to have the editor of a book that actually I wrote for coming in to do a talk. That's going to be on the 25th. And one final plug, I guess, which is on the 7th. Mark your calendars for our annual Purim Spiel. So I know I've forgot things, but that's okay. You can find all that information on the Garrett.
Indeed.
Logistics about dinner, because probably we're not going to announce that after a closing song.
Here's what needs to happen. There are a lot of you, and there's a lot of dinner, and we need to eat the dinner quickly so that we can come back in here and hear this incredible piece that I'll do a brief introduction of when we come back. We would like to be listening to music by 8:05. I know it's tight, but we're going to try anyway. So, friends, help out. Be joyous and lovely and gentle with the food. We're gonna make a motzi, but only after Stonewall surprises us with a little taste of what's coming in a little bit. Yes? Indeed. You may.
And so we join together in our motzi, and this challah, which you should eat, was baked by Steve Lee. He has surprised us with it today. And so we say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Once again, Shabbat Shalom. Introduce yourself to someone new and grab some food.
I'm from a Jewish area. I'm not Jewish, though. Siobhan. Am I leading the crowd?
Test.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Let's try that one again. Shabbat shalom, everyone. So you'll see that the choir is beginning to enter. So I want to invite everyone, if you are finished, you can come on in. And if you're not finished, we turn the speakers on in here so you can hear in here. What we'll just ask is that you, once the concert starts, that you, even if you stay in here, keep the conversation to a minimum. But I want to invite everybody on in. And so if you want to grab the last bite and head on in, or stay here and eat and head in right after.
All right, Chevra, come and sit. You don't want to make me mad. We're ready. So as you come and find your seats now, I'm going to do just a brief introduction and to say a couple of words of thanks. Multiple people have said to me, oh, you are in your element tonight. And that's true. Because it feels like I've brought two of my families together, even though a large percentage of these people and I have just met tonight. You don't realize, but you're part of our family now. But it really, as I explained during the service, it's a really special night for me and for Leora, and I want to say some important thank yous. First of all, I'd like to thank Marge and Paul Grayson. I mentioned earlier, they, year after year, they allow us to keep doing exciting and beautiful, creative musical things at the shul. So just thank you both so much. Endless gratitude for, just really walking the walk. If you want to know how to help bring amazing music to our community, feel free to talk to me about it anytime. Also, always a huge thank you to Bob Melman. He's behind the scenes. He always helps us brainstorm and bring it all together. This was a collaborative effort. I have to give also a very important thank you to Michelle W. Malkin, our executive director, who's been so So incredibly helpful putting all these pieces together. Okay, so now to pivot to this wonderful musical community behind me. Of course, you're going to get to hear these glorious voices sing this extraordinary piece, and I'm going to say one word about in a moment. But I also want to acknowledge the orchestra that is here with our terrific pianist and bassist and percussionist who already collaborated, as you heard earlier. I'm getting there. Eric Sedgwick on piano, Bill Ellison on bass, and Eric Borghi on drums. So terrific. Of course, Ed was with us earlier. My dear friend, actually, no, before I get to you, Cynthia, a big thank you as well goes to Rachel Jones, who not only is the director, the theatrical director of the piece, but I'm also told does an amazing police siren. That's what I'm told, word on the street. I guess we'll get that later. So now to this extraordinary woman. As I explained before, Cynthia has been directing, how many years are you with Stonewall? 19-ish, 16, 17, 18, something like that, a bunch of years. And she's really transformed the chorale into a true force. So last year, the Stonewall Chorale was invited into was invited to premiere this piece, to be part of then an incredible collaboration. It must have been amazing. I'm sure it was like a total peak experience at Carnegie Hall, in which they brought this important piece, Quiet No More, written collaboratively by queer composers. We happen to have one of those composers here tonight. Julian, where are you? Stand up, please. Julian Hornick. Yay, Julian. A little taste for during Pride Month. We're going to bring Julian back to do a cabaret for us. He's also an extraordinary cabaret singer. So that's locked in. And I want to say just this final word. Did I forget anything or anyone to thank? Of course, my incredible partner in all rabbinic synagogue things, Rabbi Marc Katz, who just gives endless amounts of support for all ways in which we want to elevate, and who already, in just his short time here, has been all of our teacher, including mine. And when I was thinking about how to just give us one small word of Torah, what I want to say is none of this happens. None of the redemption, none of the eventual miracles of the world becoming the world it should be, as Rabbi Katz spoke of later, without resistance. Without first the resistance of Yocheved, Moses' mother, of course, of Miriam, of course, even before Yocheved could have that baby Moses, Shifra and Puah they were the midwives, they had to reject the authority of Pharaoh. It was all about standing up in the face of unbelievable and outrageous persecution and saying no, and just continuing to say no. And Stonewall Chorale and the people of Stonewall from 50 years ago, I look at my own children and I think, you wouldn't probably be here without my LGBTQ ancestors who showed us that it was fine to hold hands walking down the street in New York City, that it was more than important to come out to the taxi driver who again and again and again asked me what my husband did, that it had to happen, that it still has to happen, and that it's constant and always, and that's a kind of redemption that all of us needs to be involved in. So I'm so grateful that we're here to hear this piece. I'm grateful to take this message to the streets. Shabbat Shalom, let's get going.
Thank you, Meredith. And come here, don't go too far away, please. I totally concur with everything that you've said and what the rabbi said about resistance in order to effect change. And I just read something that said if 3.5% of people resist, of the population resist, then they will prevail. So it's not only gay, it's not only race, it's not only immigration, it's everything that we must resist because now is a very, very dark time. Meredith, this symbol of our resistance was designed, as you can see, it's a fist with a rainbow superimposed over it, and we have one of these for you, dear. So, okay. And we're done. So on with things.
It was the day. It was the day.
It was the day.
It was the day.
It was the day.
It was the day.
It was the day everything changed.
It was the day we stood up for ourselves.
It was the day we said enough is enough.
It was the day we finally pushed
It
back.
was made into a movie with a whole lot of white people.
It was a turning point for LGBTQ
Didn't it have something
rights.
to do with Judy Garland?
I go to Stonewall every Monday for bingo.
It had nothing to do with Judy
Once
Garland.
these older guys came in, they cried and took
The
a lot
riot
of
was started
pictures.
by drag
It was
queens.
started by trans people of color.
It was started by a
It's
lesbian.
like, wow.
Everything is always started by a lesbian.
These guys sure love bingo.
I was there when the cops busted in on the
I was
first
walking
night.
my dog.
I was leaving Julius.
I was walking home from Johnny's.
I was visiting New York that week.
I heard shouting.
The commotion was exhilarating.
I walked down Waverly
I
to
walked
see
over
what
to
was
see
went over
what
to see what was
happened.
going
to see what the noise was.
Someone threw a garbage can.
We stopped the traffic on Christopher
I
Street.
didn't think all the violence was necessary.
The police were
I
armed.
never stood still.
I was afraid someone would
I
get
watched
shot.
from the
We
park
linked
across the
arms and
street.
formed a kick line
I'd
right
never
in
seen
front of
so
the
many
cops.
gay people in one
I've been
place.
waiting for something like this to happen. Things are different then.
It was the 60s.
You figured out how to find other people
There were a
like
couple
you.
of bars.
A new place would open and word would spread.
You could get
You
arrested.
could lose your job. Some people were starting to fight back.
The whole world was changing.
It was fun.
It was another time.
It was another time.
1969,
Greenwich
It
Village.
was another time.
A neighborhood that never followed the rules, where Sheridan Square is a triangle, West 4th Street crosses West 10th Street, and Waverly Place runs one way in 3 different directions. On the north side of Christopher Street stands a low brick building with plate glass windows that are boarded up from the inside. You wouldn't think anything was there except for the huge vertical sign that reads Stonewall Inn. The building has been there forever, but the latest club was opened a few years ago by a guy called Fat Tony. Everybody knows he's associated with the Genovese crime family. He only opened Stonewall to make a buck from the queens. But hey, we take what we can get.
Some of the bars in the area lost their liquor license because the state liquor authority thinks that being gay is the same as disorderly. Fat Tony opened Stonewall as an unlicensed private bottle club, so he wouldn't need a liquor license. He's not supposed to sell booze, but he pays the cops to look the other way. It's overpriced, past its prime, and attracts people who are too young, too loud, or just way too much. But Stonewall also has a dance floor. So if you want to sit quietly and sip cocktails with the aunties, Julius is around the corner. If you want to shake your booty to the groove of a Motown beat, Stonewall is where you go. Other clubs have music, but for my money, Stonewall is the only place that you can dance. Shower, hello, got a friend on the phone. Meet me at 10:45. Be ready to dance. Tie-dye, black shirts, butch pants, short skirts, it all works. Anything you feel you're alive. If you're scared of being reckoned
these big, heavy doors, and if they're closed, you have to knock.
If you don't want anyone to see you, you might have to circle the block a few times.
The doorman looks out through a little peephole. If he recognizes you, he'll let you in, and believe me, he remembers everyone.
You step into a little lobby and pay a cover.
$1.
Such a rip-off. And on weekends, it's $3.
You also have to sign a guest book. It's purely for show, part of the charade of being a private club. No one ever signs their real name.
Miss Hepburn, Miss Von Trapp, welcome to Stonewall.
Happening a lot this summer.
Everybody throw your stash in the trash. It's just another night, just another night at the only place that you can dance. NYPD, everybody line up, get your IDs out, and hold them in your hands until I say so. Keep your mouth shut. With their badges, nearly clubs, attitudes, strutting in their tight blue pants.
According to New York penal law, section 240.35, a person is guilty of loitering when he, being masked or in any manner disguised by unusual or unnatural attire or facial alterations, loiters, remains, or congregates in a public place with other persons so masked or disguised, or knowingly permits or aids persons so masked or disguised to congregate in a public place, except that such conduct is not unlawful when it occurs in connection with a masquerade party or like entertainment, if, when such entertainment is held in a city which has promulgated regulations in connection with such affairs, permission is first obtained from the police or other appropriate authorities. In other words, Betty Blue does not like my summer ensemble.
We are the village girls,
runaways,
hustlers,
street trash,
gutter rats,
scare queens,
flame queens,
swish queens,
commando queens,
miss things,
sisters.
We wear our hair in curls,
our lips in pink,
our cheeks in blush,
our shoes from the house of 5 and dime,
our dress from the window of the Hotel Albert.
We wear our dungarees above our scabby knees. We live here.
We live
there.
We live anywhere to hide from the world until morning.
A bench,
a doorway,
a sofa,
a floor,
a hotel bed.
Paid for by whatever we can take.
Paid for by whomever we can take.
We are
Fabulous.
We are ambiguous.
We are scarred.
We are
scared.
We are
dressed up,
decked out,
low down,
wound up,
worn out,
all in,
shut down,
turned out,
made up,
put out,
face down,
shut up.
We are tuned in.
We are
taken in.
We are tossed out through a door that was never open.
Our home is
where the heart is free.
Our home is
where the soul can move. Our home is where
the body can dance.
We are
unsafe.
We are
unsound.
We are
untethered.
We are
unbothered. These are
our
streets. This is
our city. This is our home. We are the village girls. Hey, Lily Law, if you show me your nightstick, I'll show you mine.
We must show the public that gays and lesbians are productive members of society. When we fight for employment rights, we must look employable. Men should wear slacks and white shirts with ties. Women should wear skirts and dresses. Protests should be courteous and peaceful. If someone tries to initiate a fight, do not fight back.
Now on Friday nights, the dance floor really fills up. But the Stonewall is not just a place to dance. It's the only place in the city you can ask someone to dance with you. And if they say yes, well, you get to hold them close with their head against your chest. Now, if they say no, you have to slink back to your corner and watch them dance with someone else and say to yourself, why? Why? What is wrong with me? You get to feel your real feelings here. You get to be nervous, you get to be lovesick, and you get to long for the person standing in front of you, hoping that they would feel the same way about you, if only you have the courage to ask. You get to feel your real feelings here.
Everybody throw your stash in the trash. It's just another
And the very next day,
And the very next day,
I picked up the Times,
flipped to page 33.
And I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked down Astor past Washington Square.
I got to the bar and I thought, there we are, in the glass, in the plaster, my people are there.
4 policemen heard in the village raid. That's all the Times wrote. But still I have my come and join my victory parade. I am not as lonely as I thought. and the very next year, and the very next year, we gathered on Christopher Street. We were 100 strong and unabashed, and we walked.
Now I lay me down to sleeplessness. A parade of questions fills my mind as no answers come on how to leave the hate behind. Headlines flatline my faith in mankind. What world are we in? 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Please tell me, where do we begin? Why is this nation that I cherish my country? 'Tis of thee, a not sweet but bitter land, besieged by bigotry. How many more marches to march, phone calls to make, hearts and minds to wake? When the road's this rough and enough is enough, how can we cope when it's not enough to What if truth is all we have? What if truth is all we can hold on to? What if truth is all we have? As we fight for rights, some try to undo. If we stand in our light, can we get through? What if truth is all we have? In the sea of light, can we stay true? And is equality a destination? Or is it always day by day? Have we been searching for somewheres over the rainbow? It's every step of the way. What if truth is all we have? What if truth is all we can hold on to? What if truth is all we have? As we fight for rights, some try to undo. What if truth is all we have? If we stand in our light, can we get through? What if truth is all we have? In this sea of lies, can our dreams come true? What if truth is all we have? If we stand in our light, can we get through? What are we gonna do? Truth is all we have. In this sea of lies, can our dreams come true? We gotta hold on, hold on, hold on. What if truth is all we have? What if truth is all we can hold on to?
On the first night of the Stonewall uprising, The tactical police force tried to disperse the crowd by forming a human wall on Christopher Street and pushing the crowds west towards 7th Avenue. Instead of dispersing, the crowd ran around through the Greenwich Village side streets and regathered on Christopher Street behind the police. The police turned around and marched the newly formed crowd east, only to have the crowd circle around again and regather on Christopher Street behind the police. This happened several times. This will always happen. We will always regather. We will always find a way to be together, to speak out, to fight, to sing, to love. There is so much that we can do. Today is always the day that we can change the world.
Since that summer night, the lives we live in.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Stonewall Chorale and the amazing orchestra. Thank you, everybody, for spending the whole night with us. Come back. Shabbat, it lasts a whole 24 hours tomorrow morning. And I just would like to say, again, a huge thank you to Marge and Paul Grayson for making it possible for us to bring Stonewall. Thank you. Come back and visit us. We're your New Jersey Jewish home. You can always come visit us. This whole month is Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month, where we're elevating the place of inclusion, trying to take those important looks in. Next Friday night, Rabbi Anne Laurent is going to come and be our guest speaker. Look out for other opportunities to lift those voices up to Shabbat Shalom. Thank you again.